What is going on, guys? My name is Lextasy and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about my 2020 Tesla Model Y long range and what do I think of it as a practical vehicle. Now, I know for the most part my channel is all about high performance cars and drag racing, but to me practical cars are just as important for daily driving as anything else that I own, because when I picked up this car I was looking for something that I could daily drive, not have to worry about maintenance. And well, it's been about a year of ownership, and we're going to go over the pros and cons of this car. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into this video. And I gotta say before we started that the car industry has came a long way, especially after driving one of these. It's mind-boggling what it comes with, but also what kind of issues it has now. But let's go ahead and go over everything. But before we start that list, one thing I do want to go over, guys, is charging, because that's one of the main ways that you can get this thing to drive, I guess, or to get fuel to the car, right? Most cars, you pull up to a gas station, you plug in, you fuel up for 2 to 3 minutes, full tank of gas, and you're back on the road. Not on the Tesla. Since it's a fully electric vehicle, there's 3 different ways to get energy to it, or plug it up, or to recharge it, whatever you want to say. First way, of course, is the superchargers. They are all over the US, nationwide. You can see it through your navigation on the Tesla itself. You can see it through your app. You can see it on Google, everywhere. You can use those for supercharging. That's pretty quick, I'll be honest. Last time we went there to get 50% charge, so from 50% to 100%, it took about 30 minutes. But cool thing is they do offer Wi-Fi while you're there, so you can watch Netflix on a massive screen, which is awesome. Second way is, of course, they do provide a charging cable for every Tesla that comes with it, or I think you have to buy it. I don't think so, but excuse the dirtiness. So this is the cable itself, and of course I did buy the connector. So this plugs into a 240 watt, so like a refrigerator wall plug or whatever. This gives you roughly 20 miles to 25 miles per hour of charge. Now, if you do a regular, just a little 120 watt, it's 3 miles per hour. So you're going to be charging well over, I would say, 2 to 3 days. That's just the honest truth of it. The third way is called charge points. They are the universal charging stations that you see all over US as well. Now, I do have that little adapter that you plug into the machine, and then it attaches to the Tesla itself, and you get about 30 miles per hour of charge, so it's not too bad. But obviously, if you're on a road trip that is not a station you want to use, you do want to try to make it to a supercharging station. Now let's talk about why did I buy a Tesla. So for me, guys, you know I have a bunch of cars that I've owned. Previously, I've owned 73 cars in my name in the last, I think, 8 to 10 years. I've experienced them all, from boring cars to Hellcats. Of course, you got the Durango Hellcat there, you have an Audi R8 twin turbo. I've had them all. But the Tesla was the one that I was really interested in, because, well, for practical driving, I want to be able to drive it as much as I do. I drive about 50 miles a day, if not more. Sometimes I go to Charlotte, I go to different places to get fuel for the Durango, which runs on the 85. So I need something that I could put a lot of miles on and have low maintenance. And every time I heard about the Teslas and the plug-in cars, that was the hype. For the last 4 or 5 years, that is what everybody has been talking about. So a year ago, I was like, man, why not, you know? And on top of that, my dealership where I work out, they just installed charging stations. They are the charge point ones, but for us it's free. So when you get there, I get to work, I plug up, and I charge while I'm there for the next 8 to 9 hours. So it makes it super easy, and it's free. I mean, I'm literally getting free fuel for the Tesla, which is great. On top of that, you know, everybody talks about, well, you don't have oil changes that you have to do, which is a complete and honest truth, which is awesome. That's saving you about what, $80 to $100 these days with full synthetic oil every 10,000 miles. So there is some savings when it comes to maintenance as well. And since we're talking about maintenance, let's go ahead and jump into the pros of owning a Tesla. It doesn't matter if it's a Model 3, Model Y, X, or S. There is barely any maintenance. You're not paying for oil changes. Brakes, when it comes to those, you have regenerative braking, which is the motors, electric motors are doing the braking for you. So you're not going to go through brakes as often. I haven't had to do them yet. I don't hear them at all, and I live in the mountains, because I honestly maybe use brake pedal itself about 30% of the time. The rest of the time, as soon as you let off the gas pedal, the car is braking for you through the electric motor. So it's kind of mind-boggling how it works. I love it. Once you get used to it, you know when to let off before you get to a red light. That way you're just coasting, and quite honestly, we're charging the batteries a little bit, which always helps. Now let's talk about the second pro of owning a plug-in vehicle, or in this case, my Tesla Model Y, and that is charging or recharging your car. It is still way cheaper to do it this way than to go and pay a gas station, which right now regular unleaded fuel is like $3.40 a gallon. It's insane. It used to be like $1.80, which at those times maybe owning a Tesla wasn't that good of an idea, but now it does save you quite a bit, even if you use the supercharging stations stations. Last time I went, I got from 50% to 100% charge for like 11 or 12 bucks, and that got me like 150 miles of range. And as you guys know, 90 to 100% of charge is the toughest one to get. That's why I was there for about 30 minutes. But if you break that down, that's like $1 for every 12 to 13 miles, which, you know, multiply that, paying at $3.40 a gallon right now, you will be like 50-60 miles per gallon. So you are definitely getting better gas mileage doing it this way, or range miles. I don't know how to say it, but you are winning by owning a Tesla. If you're going to be daily driving, even if you plug it in at the house and get 3 miles per hour of charge, leave it overnight, and you're ready to drive the next morning for what, 50% of the cost if you were to own a regular vehicle. And the last thing on my list, guys, number 3 for pros of owning a Tesla or any electric car is the instant torque, which you're going to feel once we get it on the road, because this thing, it just takes off, man. There is no lag when it comes to turbos on a vehicle or supercharger. You get that instant power, and the thing will get you to move over. You can switch lanes, you can pass anybody without any hesitation whatsoever. It's something to get used to, and it's something I would miss if I ever sold this thing. Just like if you owned a remote control car, it's just crazy how fast those suckers take off, because there is no lag when it comes to electric motors. So I will always miss that part of owning a Tesla. And now, guys, let's move on to, well, the cons of owning this Tesla. Now you're gonna say, whoa, Alex, that was way too quick, man. Why'd you only go over 3 things that you like about the Tesla? Well, let's talk about the first thing on the cons list, and to me that's a very important thing, and that is how bland this car is and how boring this car is. I want you guys to take a look at this thing, right? This looks exactly the same as any other Tesla Model Y on the road. The only thing you'll see different is color choices, maybe different wheels. That's about it. You're not gonna see different bumpers on it. You're not gonna see different side skirts. You're not gonna see a spoiler on it. You're just not gonna see anything that makes it look any different, and that's the whole point of this car. The whole point of getting a Tesla or plug-in vehicle is to get you from A to B to your work and back, to, you know, save you on fuel and recharging and maintenance, but that's about it. It's not gonna win you car shows. It's not gonna win you races. People aren't gonna look at you whenever you're going down the road and trying to figure out what kind of a cool car that is. That's just not the whole point of this thing. Look how bland the front end looks. It's a boring car. Now I know a lot of people are gonna say, well, Alex, that's not a big deal to me, and I get it. It probably isn't, but to me it is, because when I drive a car, I want something that feels kind of cool. You're gonna spend what, 20-30% of your day in this vehicle, so why not get something that kind of stands out? And like I said, to some people that won't even matter. They don't care. They're not buying a car to be cool. They're not buying a car to go fast or anything like that, and I get it, but to me that is number 1 thing on my list. But I kind of knew that I was sacrificing that, but I wanted to experience a plug-in vehicle or battery operated car, so Tesla was my number 1 choice, and I did drive it. But again, guys, look at it, man. There's not much to be really excited about this car, and there's a reason why you get a $7,500 tax credit at the end of the year for buying this thing, just because you're saving the earth. But let's move on to the rest of the cons. And the second con on my list of why I don't like owning this Tesla is the repair shops. Well, why you bring up the repair shops? Well, because I already had to do repairs in 10,000 miles. Now the closest repair shops to me, I am in Asheville, North Carolina, is either I go west to Knoxville, Tennessee, which is 2 hours away, or I go east to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is also 2 hours away. Last time I called Charlotte, they said it's about 2 to 3 weeks wait time to get in, and Knoxville was about a week or so. So of course I went to Knoxville. When I got there, I spent a whole day sitting around in a really boring repair shop, dealership, I guess, whatever you want to call it, Tesla location, waiting for them to repair some items. So that moves on to the next thing on my list, and that is the repairs you're going to go through. I understand the maintenance is low on these, but when things fail, they fail big time, and they cost quite a bit of money. So when I bought this car with 44,000 miles, right at 48,900 or 49,000 miles, my front left strut or shock or whatever in the suspension was creaking really bad. I mean, it was embarrassing to drive. You go over any small pothole and the thing sounds like it's got no suspension left underneath it. It was the worst sound I've ever heard. It was embarrassing to pull up to a red light or take off from a red light, because I mean, oh my God, it sounded like the thing was about to fall apart. Being that this thing weighs 4,400 pounds and the batteries are just extremely heavy, it wears out the ball joints and everything else in the suspension a lot quicker, especially when you're doing a lot of mountain driving where you're doing a lot of turns and stuff like that. It's just a lot of weight to move, you know, left and right. I had to get that done. So I knew that I had about 1,000 miles left before my warranty expires, because it's 4 years or 50,000 miles, I guess you could say, bumper to bumper coverage on the Teslas. So I called Knoxville Knoxville, and I got them in there. I made it there with about 49.5, right? So I get in, they do the repairs. It took all day. The cool thing about the Tesla app is you can kind of see what's going on with your car. So if your hood is open because they're working on it, if the doors are open, so I can kind of keep track, as well as the service bulletin or service repair through your app. Shows you the progress report of how far they're into the repairs. It was supposed to be 2 to 3 hours. They had some sort of recall to do, but I didn't leave until like 4 or 5 p.m. and had to drive 2 hours back. So that was annoying. A week later, the same noise started happening again. So I don't know what they did, if they actually replaced the ball joints or the strut or whatever, or they didn't, but the noise was there for another 2 weeks or so. Then it kind of slowly went away, but it hasn't happened since, and I'm at 54,000 miles. There's been also other repairs that I've had to do. Now remember how I said the maintenance part of the owning a Tesla is super low and cheap? It's great, believe me, that's awesome. But there's things that will fail because it's an electric car a lot quicker and because it's a heavy car. Let's talk about the tires. I bought this car with 44,000 miles on it. They came with brand new tires. I bought it at Louisville Autoplex. These tires are almost already completely wore out. There's not much left, especially on the sides. You can see that there's the tread marks at the minimum already in the front and in the rear. So now I'm stuck having to do tires at 10,000 miles of ownership. So I understand oil changes, you know, saving me about $100 per oil change that I don't have to do, but now I'm going to pay $900 to $1,000 to get new tires, balance them, and of course install them. So that costs a lot more money in the long run if you're doing it every 10 to 15,000 miles. Second thing that failed on this car already is the low voltage battery. The regular battery that you see in cars like the Durango or any car that you own is just a basic battery that usually, you know, lasts for about 30 to 50,000 miles. You'll see it start low cranking or not cranking at all, and then you just got to replace it. I've owned it for 10,000 miles and the battery already went out. And when it goes out in the Tesla, it's not just like, hey, it doesn't want to crank, because obviously the whole car is battery operated, so it can pull power from the battery. No, you get messages on the screen that says low voltage battery, replace immediately or we'll start shutting things down, accessories and features. And it does, because now when it went out, my USB ports for charging my phone didn't work. It started acting up, and so you have to do it, you know, you don't have a choice. It's not like you can just keep driving it like that and hoping for the best. And so, you know, I was like, I guess it's time to replace the battery, which kind of sucks, but I mean, it does have 50,000 miles on it, so I mean, it's probably just my luck that the battery, low voltage battery, went out. So I went online and I looked up a Tesla Model Y long range battery. You know how much that sucker is? $500 from Tesla. Now, luckily, they do show you a manual and they actually let you replace it yourself. You don't have to go to a repair shop to do it. But $500 for a low voltage battery. Now, luckily, O'Reilly's in Advance has one it's compatible. You can use it as well, and it's still $300 because you have to pay for the core and everything else like that. So $300, where normally in a Durango you get away with maybe $180, maybe $200 for a battery. You're paying $300, or if you really want to go factory and OEM, you're paying $500 plus installation if you want Tesla to do it. That sucks, but I went ahead and bought one, of course, waited a few days to get it in. So I go to open the hood of the car. I take the plastics off and I pop it open, and I see that the battery that's in there now is already aftermarket. It's like a hand-cooked battery or something like that. So that means somebody already had to replace that battery once, and I'm the second guy doing it within 50,000 miles. So the battery on these things, for whatever reason, just don't last, which makes no sense to me, because the whole car is battery. Why is it that this thing has to use the low voltage battery so many times that, you know, to power the electronics in the car and everything like that, that it wears out that battery so quick? So now you got tires that you have to do every 10 to 15,000 miles. You have a battery, a low voltage battery, that costs you another $300 to $500. That's, I don't know how often you gotta do it. I guess every 2 years or so. So if you look at the maintenance part of it, seems kind of low. But if you're talking about repairs on the car, that's what really gets you in the long run. All right, guys, so I figured it was enough sitting around just talking in the same place. Let's actually get this thing on the road. So for the next part of this video, I decided to do the recording inside the car, which normally in any other recording that I do is totally fine. But I had no idea that you can actually pick up this much echo that is truly happening whenever you try to have a conversation inside the car, because you're sitting in such a big glass bowl. There is no noise insulation whatsoever. So any communication, any conversation you're having, it just bounces off the car and it sounds horrible. So I do apologize for that. I had no idea it was this bad, but now you kind of get an idea of what it's like to drive a Tesla. So remember I talked about the torque? Watch this. 3, 2, 1. It's just so freaking instant, man. That part never gets old. Instant torque, always has that horsepower, I guess, just because it's electric motor, so you can't go wrong with that in the sense of just how quick and how responsive that car is. And I'm always going to miss that about this car. Now, let's talk about the supercharging part of owning this car. So let's say you take it on the road, right? A lot of people talk about when you buy a Tesla, the range anxiety. That is a legitimate thing, because whenever you're driving on the road, let's say you want to go somewhere. Like if I want to get a full charge on this, and allegedly it's 320 miles to get to Charlotte, when I do 100% now charge on my car, it only gets me 290 miles. So with 50,000 miles, I've lost about 15% of my range just because of battery degradation. That is just a real thing. You don't get that in a gasoline powered car. You just don't. You don't lose your range just because your fuel tank got smaller somehow. It doesn't happen. But on the Tesla, that's just part of owning it. So last time I went to Charlotte, which was about 130 miles away, so one way, I had to drop off a buddy somewhere, so we dropped them off and I was coming back. It was showing I had 290 miles when I left, and so 130 times 260 should leave you about 30 miles of distance that you can still make it back. So here's the problem: it cannot account for different ranges when it comes to mountain range and different altitudes and stuff like that. So whenever you're going up and down the mountains, it's using more power to do it, and technically it should recharge when you're going down the mountain, the battery, so the range it shows you to go to Charlotte and back should be right. Well, I made it home with 0% on the clock, and I legitimately thought that I was going to have to get towed to the closest Tesla dealership. I got lucky though, because when it said 0, I was about 3 miles from the house. So the 290 miles, which technically should be 320 when you buy the car, it got me 260, if that. So that is crazy, and anxiety is a real deal. So last time we went to a supercharger, like I said, we charged 50% of the battery, and it took 36 to 40 minutes to do it. So 40 minutes to charge half of your battery. If I had 3 kids in the car like we usually do, they would have lost it, and that's only to get half a battery life. So if you're trying to go on a long distance trip on a Tesla, you got to plan accordingly. And when I mean accordingly, find charging stations that have food next to it where you can sit down and have a meal and spend about 30 to 45 to an hour waiting to make sure that the car charges fully. And here's another problem with supercharging stations. Let's say you are charging up there, and you went to the restaurant to go get food while you're waiting, and the server takes forever, right? So your food comes out and the Tesla's done charging. Well, you're like, well, we might as well finish the food. They have idle charges. So if your car is sitting there idling at the charge point for too long, you get charged by Tesla for using a stall and not charging or being done charging. That is crazy. So it's like you kind of get rewarded by, you know, hey, we do offer sometimes free supercharging for you, but you better not be there too long because I'm going to charge you for it anyway. So it's kind of like a hit or miss, man. Like, you don't know what to do. How do you plan a trip out accordingly and hope that you don't get charged for being at a stall too long? Or if you show up and all the stalls are taken, what do? You can't just sit there with the whole family waiting, and then that reschedules all the plans you had to get to wherever you're going, to the beach or anywhere else. All right, now let's talk about the next car on my list, and that is the road noise, the quality and the interior finish of this car. I'm doing about 45 miles per hour. And you can hear every bump. You can hear the road noise from the tires from the outside. It is so annoying that when you're listening to music, you gotta almost max out the volume just to kind of balance out or to fade out the road noise from the outside. Imagine on the highway doing 70 and 80. It is extremely loud in here. I don't know if they were trying to save on the weight by putting less insulation in the car, or noise insulation, whatever it's called, but it freaking sucks, man. For highway driving or for daily driving, this car just feels so janky when it comes to the quality of the finish of the car and how it doesn't feel so cool. Now the seats are great, don't get me wrong, seats are comfortable, I love it. The heated seat feature really does work pretty well, but just overall fit and finish of the car is just not up to par when you're spending $40,000 to $50,000. And we're back, guys, and let's talk about the last but very important part or a negative part of owning a Tesla. So let me ask you this, guys. Have you ever parked your gas-powered vehicle, left it there for, let's say, oh, I don't know, from Tuesday to Friday, got back in the car and you lost 20% to 30% of your fuel just because it's sitting there? Oh yeah, it happens on a Tesla all the time. Now you can ask, how is that even possible? You have to remember, guys, just like your phone, the Tesla is strictly ran on batteries. It's obvious, that's a no-brainer, right? But what that means is while this car is sitting there, all the computers and electronics are still running and functioning on the inside. They can't just all completely shut off because it can ruin them. So there's something called cabin overheat protection, right? When I first got the car, it kicked on and my phone was like, hey, cabin overheat protection activate. I was like, what the heck is that? What does that even mean? What do you mean? Why is the AC on in the car? So what is cabin overheat protection? Basically, it's designed by Tesla that says, hey, I know everything in there is electronic. We know that the seats are all leather and it can really be hot in there when you get in the car. So by activating overheat protection, you can set it at 90 degrees or when the interior gets to 105 degrees and the car will cool itself off. It'll kick on the AC, it'll cool everything off. So when you get in, you're not burning, you're not smeltering inside. It feels like a comfortable ride when you get in. You know, just like any other car, when it gets to 90 degrees outside, it's 120, 130 inside the car. It's a cool feature. But if you leave that on and you let the car sit like I did with 90% charge from Tuesday till I picked it up today on Friday morning, it was at 65%. I lost 25% of the battery charge just because the car's sitting there. So if I didn't have access to free charging, that cost me about $4 to $5 just because the car sat there and I lost fuel, I guess you could say, or range. It's crazy. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, okay, well, why don't you just turn it off if you're going to let it sit there? You can. One thing that Tesla says in their manual or in their booklet is that the car cannot exceed 140 degrees interior for 24 hours or for a long period of time. I'm not saying it's going to be 130 degrees in there, you know, from morning till the next morning, because at night the car does cool off. But you have to understand that just like any other battery, just like your phone battery, when you use it a lot or if it's plugged up the whole time, you can feel the phone heating up, right? Whenever you have a lot of apps open and you're running or it's doing things, it's heating up because it actually kills the life expectancy or degrades the battery. Same as in a Tesla. Now, the Tesla manual states that, hey, heat doesn't really have a big impact on it, but at the end of the day, common sense and quite honestly, a lot of forums tell you that you don't want this thing to be overheating all the time and sitting in 135, 140 degree heat, because the lithium ion batteries do degrade from heat or excessive cold in that matter too. One thing you have to understand, guys, is at the end of the day, you're sitting on a massive battery pack. It's like sitting on a massive phone, I guess you can say. So imagine if something went wrong, and just like the videos you see with the massive fires happening from Teslas and they just literally melt themselves down to nothing and you can't put that fire out for 48 hours. So in my opinion, guys, I honestly don't want this thing sitting in the heat overheating for a long period of time, because who knows what can happen to that car. And I'm not trying to pay insurance claim on this and whatever cars it was sitting next to. So to wrap up the video, would I buy another Tesla Model Y? Probably not, at least not in my opinion or not in my life, because I have way too much going on. It's not like, you know, don't take me the wrong way, but my life is not really bland where I drive to work 10 miles a day and I stop by maybe the gym or get me a Starbucks coffee and come straight home. I have something going on every single day, whether it's going to a different city to go to different events. I need something that's extremely reliable. It's something that I don't have to worry about finding supercharging stations to plug up to, because I might not make it home after an event or after I go to a different city. I just don't have time to sit there and wait for a car to recharge. I don't have time to go to a repair shop 2 hours away and hope that they can get me done within the specified time, or else I'll be stuck there all day. And I hope that the repair is actually covered, because quite honestly, most things that fail on this car are not cheap, and when they do, you have to go to a repair facility. Luckily, you can replace your own low voltage battery, because if you couldn't, that'd be kind of sad on the Tesla side. But honestly, unless you like a soulless car, even the Plaids, in my opinion, they just look subtle. They don't look anything different. They drive just like any other car. Yes, they go fast, but nothing makes them pop. Nothing makes them stand out. Nobody jumps in front of a Plaid just because it's a Plaid and they want to take photos of it. I don't know. I just don't like it. It's not what I thought it was going to be. But thank you guys for watching. I don't know. Put a comment down below. What do you think of your Tesla? Or are you considering buying one? What do you think is going to happen to the electric market in the future? But for me, I think my time with this Tesla Model Y is over, and I'm going to be selling it in the next few weeks. But thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy your lives, enjoy your cars, and I will see you next time.